than yours. So when, for example, one recites Maliki Yawmiddin and the other recites Maliki Yawmiddin, they're saying mine is a better recitation. I prefer that. You're saying no. In fact, they're at a point where they might be trying to impose on each other which recitation we should follow. So this is not about saying your recitation is not part of the Quran or your recitation is not part of the Quran. This was not the nature of the dispute.
Hold on 1 second.
You just made claims up. This is what we call the ingenuity in lies, tricks and deception.
Sorry, one
so
second.
Now,
One
so
second.
now,
You've accused me of lies, ingenuity and deception. The evidence that he read did not give his example.
I'm not finished.
He's reading into the text something that is not there.
I haven't
The text that he read only said
I haven't finished.
that they disputed about which recitation was better. It did not clarify the terms upon which they said the recitation was better.
Do you know the nature of
So
this
please,
missionary tourists?
Evidence, please.
They will not let you finish your point.
Please.
So now as we
Evidence,
realize,
please.
as we go back, so now we establish.
Okay, you carry on with your sermon, Mansur. Take care. I've asked him for evidence. He doesn't produce his evidence. You gave an example. You have no evidence to back it up.
You're just open mouth, isn't it? A loud mouth.
I'm challenging you now.
On what?
I'm challenging you
On
now.
what?
When we defined the dispute as to which recitation was better, because that's in the hadith, you then tried to clarify it simply using your example. So now I want you to give me evidence that your example is an accurate qualification of the statement that they disputed which recitation was better.
Listen, when they make very clear, they were saying my recitation is better, this means what? Each one has a recitation which they think mine is better than yours in the way I recite. We know they recited as they were taught by the companions.
We know. Where's your evidence?
You're interrupting rudely again.
Evidence.
You learn to behave in a civilized way, then we can talk.
I'm asking you for evidence. That's a very civilized thing to do.
Listen, when I finish, that's why I'm saying to speak to
Come and find me when you got the evidence, and we'll come.
Mr. Irrelevant, let's have 5 minutes each, so that you have no chance to rudely interrupt.
No. I'm asking you. I'm not here to debate by your rules. I'm asking you for evidence that your qualification, which I believe is totally unsubstantiated, without any backing evidence at all, that your qualification of the words they disputed about which recitation is better.
That's what the text says.
Yeah, that is not. That doesn't evidence, I'm sorry Mansur, it doesn't evidence the example that you gave to qualify the statement. You understand about qualifying statements?
Yeah, let me give you an example.
Okay, so give me evidence that your example is the correct qualification of the statement.
Sure. So what I'm saying is, because this hadith doesn't talk about anything else which he tried to infer, look, he tries to infer everything else. I am saying, reading the text itself, it tells you that they're reciting in a way, and they're saying my recitation is better than us.
Show me.
What we know is this: the recitation that was available to them are the recitation that the Prophet ﷺ taught the companions, and the companions taught them. So you have Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, you have many other companions. Yes. They were reciting. And we know that their recitation had differences within their readings, as the Prophet ﷺ taught them. Why? Because it is to facilitate easy reading and memorization. Because there are many linguistic Arab tribes which found difficult to pronounce or to read or to utter many ways of reading certain words or phrases or letters. So the flexibility was given from Allah to read the Quran in this several ahruf from which the qira'at, the authentic qira'at that we have, came. So they were reciting like this, and because you have in Azerbaijan a meeting place of new Muslims who haven't had the learning yet about the etiquettes of how to engage with each other in differences, they were saying, no, mine, I learned it this way, mine is better. And he says, I learned it that way, my recitation is better. They were not saying your recitation is not Quran and my recitation is only Quran. you somehow try to concoct that meaning.
Okay, I've listened to you very
I haven't
patiently,
finished. I haven't
Mansur.
finished
No,
yet.
I've listened to you very patiently.
Have a bit more patience.
I'm
No,
going
have a
to
bit
ask
more
you
patience.
again
So
to show
when
me
the people
evidence that your qualification
patience.
of the statement
So when the
that my recitation is better than your
Muslim
recitation
army were
is
reading
the correct qualification.
Azerbaijan,
Show me
what was
from the
happening is
manuscripts
this.
that is
Because
the
there
correct
were new
qualification
Muslims-
of the statement.
Why are you talking while I'm
You
talking?
have not done that. I've waited quite patiently. You've been talking and waffling again. I'll wait for you to find it. Come and get me
Find
when
what?
you have,
Find what?
and then we'll. And then
I
we'll
just
talk
told
about
you.
it. No, you haven't. You haven't. What we see is Uthman's response to this dispute amongst the Muslims, and the way that he responded was to standardize
Brother,
the
patience.
text. By standardizing the text, this implies that the disagreements were more than simply pronunciation.
Who's talking about pronunciation?
Were more than simply dialect. That it seems to suggest that there were greater differences, and that is supported by the fact that within the Islamic manuscript tradition, you have variations between the different manuscripts.
I give you examples.
Well, you gave me an example.
You give examples now.
I'm just going to give you the example
Go
that
ahead.
you gave me.
Yeah.
Forgive me if my Arabic pronunciation is bad. I'm not claiming to speak Arabic. But you gave me an example of the difference between hafs and wash, between the word, I think you used kalam and kalem. I'm not claiming to be an Arabic speaker. I'll just ask you
No,
to
you're
repeat
claiming to
your
someone
example.
to have a bad memory.
No, again, Mansur, you're
I didn't use kalam and kalam. I didn't
your
use that.
subtle attempts at ad hominem. You
No,
know
I
the
did not
example
say
you
kalam.
gave earlier.
What example did I give you?
I'm sure you'll edit it out of your
No,
video.
what example did I
Because
give?
you've admitted that there are textual variants
No,
in
what
the Quran.
example did I
And
provide?
have disproved.
He's forgotten it already.
I've disproved 30 years, 40 years of Islamic argument that every single Quran, everywhere in the entire world, is identical, dot for dot, word for word, letter for letter. And here you are on Speaker's Corner admitting that that's not the case. That actually the Qurans are different. That there are textual variants in words and in letters. So, using the example that you gave,
Which was?
the one between hafs and wash,
Which was?
between the word, I'm not claiming to be an Arabic speaker.
No, which was?
Kalam and kalim.
No, you've forgotten already.
Yeah, I did,
You
but
did.
you did give
So
one.
you have a very bad memory.
Well,
You've forgotten
gee
the
whiz,
only one
so
example
what?
that I gave.
I mean, Mansur seems to think that attacking me as a person is equivalent to winning an
No.
argument. That's not the same thing. A logical argument is won by the evidence you marshal and the logic by which you marshal it, not attacking your debating opponent. And you seem to confuse those
You
two
make
things.
up claims which cannot substantiate by
Here we
the
go, ad
text.
hominem.
I just proved to you by reading the hadith itself.
No,
you
no,
made up a
hold
claim.
on. Hold on. For those of you that weren't here, he read the hadith, and the hadith did not prove his point. It did not prove his point. He gave a qualification
No, don't call him stupid, he's
to
not.
what he read. He gave an exegesis to the text that is not plain from the text itself. That is not the same thing.
What we have
as
is someone
evidence
just
argument.
loud speech, no substance. So now,
No substance.
Okay, so
Well-
brother, on my turn to speak now. So as we,
I gotta go. I gotta go.
Stay here.
I got from this what I wanted to get.
stay-
I'm happy with what you said. Thank you very
No, no,
much.
stay here.
Have a great time, Mansur.
Stay here, stay
Enjoy
here.
your missionary
No,
work.
no,
You're
stay
doing
here,
a fine job.
stay here.
A great.
I refute to you even
congratulations
more.
to the editorial team. I love the way you edit your videos. Fantastic, guys.
You know what? He's accusing all of you that are recording with intellectual disintegrity. Can you believe that? These people, and now he's on camera, right? You can find him who he is. Whether he's a Christian missionary, whether he's a secularist or an atheist. No, he's not a tourist. I've seen him before. I've seen him before. No, I've seen him before. So what he's done is this. He comes along, makes up a false claim, and when the text is examined, he knows his game is up because I've read this text. And then he now lies about it. He made a claim that, in your Islamic tradition, the Muslims, they deferred, they didn't know how to recite the text. I said, no, this isn't what the text says. So I opened up the text, and the text says, they said my recitation is better than yours. This has nothing to do with whether they know how to recite it or not. So he denies that, even though this is on tape. So those of you who are listening and will be watching these YouTube videos, go back and listen, or carefully listen to those sections, that what he said. And then he's claiming that all of these things, he can't even remember the example that I gave. Such an example of a bad memory, which I earlier on was trying to say. These people need to come clean intellectually, be a man of integrity. So when we Muslims claim the Quran has remained unchanged, I gave you an example, gave all of you an example of a particular reading that has been transmitted from the Prophet of Islam all the way to us. It has been meticulously preserved even to this level, hasn't changed. And I said, look, I can talk as much depth as you want on this, because you're using the words, vocabularies that somehow suggest you've gone and learned something about it. Was he willing to talk about the Hafs reading transmission? He wasn't. Was he willing to talk about the Warsh transmission? He wasn't. The only thing he was doing is speak loudly, like what the other guy used to do before. That's all. Speak loud as if you make a claim and you substantiate it. No, you can't. You have to bring substance. So what Uthman radiallahu anhu did, he unified them under a text, bilisan in Quraysh, with the Qurayshi lisan, where they had differences into how to write it, so that this can then be worked to use to recite the Quran in the readings that have been taught. And we know he allowed to write the masahif without any diacritical points to differentiate between the letters, and without any vowels. That means it can accommodate as many ahruf as possible. That means it can accommodate as many qira'ah that has been transmitted to us as possible. That is why he made this project with the consensus of whole of the Muslim community, so that we have this one standard text where everyone can read and say that's it, rather than saying, my recitation is better than yours, because now this recitation will come from there and you will learn to know that recitation is acceptable. So I don't know why he's unwilling to continue the discussion. It's very sad, isn't it? It would be nice to go and find out the very roots of why they have a problem with this, and then talk about their manuscript tradition, whether they have any indeed to back up from the earlier times, like we do. We have manuscripts going back very early, carbon dated even manuscripts of Quran. But this is a discussion for another time and another day. May Allah guide us all.
Can you also just make a comment? He made a comment about there being no Quranic manuscripts from the 1st century Hijri, and he was making claim that is not the case. Can you just quickly give us?
See, how can I talk on all these claims? Academics have very clearly demonstrated in their academic publications Quranic manuscripts being carbon dated even within the 1st century of Islam. So when we talk about 1st century of Islam, yes, within the 100 years of Islam, it's
We're
carbon
talking
dated.
about one of them, like the Topkapi manuscripts.
No, there are other fragments of the Quran. The Sana manuscript is from the 1st century.
Jazakallah khair.